Today I have for you a very special treat. Looking at the position you see before you, what would you assume is going on here? Particularly when it comes to white's position. How many moves do you think have been played? What moves have been played? And why does it look like black has made so many more moves than white? Well, the answer lies with this man right here, the world's #1 player, Magnus Carlsen, who in the game you are about to witness plays what is probably the most ridiculous opening I've ever seen him play. This is extreme, world-class trolling. If you want to descend into the depravity of a trolling lifestyle, this is not where you start. This is for advanced users, or user, singular, because I think that only Magnus or maybe Hikaru could get away with what you're about to see. Now, I don't know if he's the very first person to play this ridiculous opening, but he's certainly put it on the map, so we're going to go ahead and give him the credit. So I don't know how much more there is to say. We're going to let the chess speak for itself, which for most of the opening is going to sound like nothing but incoherent babbling, but let's get into it. This game was played about 4 years ago on lichess.org. It is Blitz. Magnus Carlsen is up against an international master with a name I can't pronounce. He has the white pieces, and he opens this unholy undertaking with c3. This move is neither popular nor very strong, and I'm not going to even bother speculating on what the typical thinking is behind this move, since Magnus's reason for playing this has nothing to do with any kind of rational opening strategy, as you'll soon see. Black responds sensibly with d5, and now we get queen to a4 check. A move that you would see a lot of beginners make. Patzer sees check, Patzer gives check. Black responds knight to c6, another good move, after which Magnus commits the cardinal sin of moving a piece twice in the opening with queen to h4. Not to mention that he brought the queen out early, so he's already violating cherished opening principles left and right, but he's just getting started, because after another sane and sensible reply from black, knight to f6, we have king to d1, forever giving up the right to castle, which is in most cases such a terrible thing to do that I don't even know if it breaks an official opening rule. People do say castle early, so I guess it violated that one by rendering it forever impossible. But this is just so obviously bad that everyone knows not to do it. You don't even need a rule. Unless you're brand new to chess, or you're the world's #1 player. Those seem to be the only two exceptions. Next is e5. Black's just getting everything he wants here. Christmas has come early, and he's been a good boy, while Magnus continues to be naughty with his next move, f3. Which objectively speaking is his third consecutive blunder, since each of his past 3 moves have shifted the engine's evaluation by almost a whole pawn, which means that we're now sitting at over 3 pawns in black's favor, according to Stockfish. A good move for black now would be bishop to e7, getting lined up with the queen, but what's played is bishop to f5. Which is still totally winning, though it's not ideal since now white can at least get in g4 with tempo on the bishop, followed by g5 giving a kick to the knight, assuming that Magnus wants to play significantly better than a random move generator, which he does not. He has a plan though, which is worth something, and which now comes to fruition with the move queen to e1. Bringing us to a position that, at first glance, almost looks like white has allowed black to start the game with the 3-move advantage. And in the time black has made his 5 moves, white's only played c3 and f3. Until you realize that white's king and queen are on the wrong squares, as they have in fact swapped places. So this is just like giving black a 3-move head start while also giving up the right to castle. So a hopeless position here for white, but let's see how Magnus goes about beating this international master anyway. Black continues bishop to e7, getting ready to castle. Now we have g4 attacking the bishop, and at this point black misses a tactical opportunity. Pause the video if you'd like to try to spot it. Here black has knight takes g4, since if the knight were to be captured, then comes bishop to h4, winning the white queen, which looks amusingly similar to the quickest possible checkmate in chess, where it's the king who is trapped on e1. Black misses this opportunity in the game, where he instead retreats his bishop to g6. Magnus continues h4, looking to harass the bishop further with h5, hence the move h5 from black, preventing it, while inviting g takes h5 with open arms. Magnus says, I don't care how late you stay open, I'm not going to let you activate your rook on h8, and so plays g5, giving a kick to the knight, which goes to d7. Next is d3. Magnus has decided he's going to try to absolve himself by at least developing his knights before his bishops, which is a well-known, though way overgeneralized opening principle. So he's going to adhere to all the opening rules that don't really matter while breaking all the ones that do. We have knight to c5, knight to d2. Black expands on the wing with a5, preventing b4, thus securing his knight's outpost on c5. Magnus develops his other knight to its only available square, h3. Black now gains more space with a4, looking good. His advantage is now swelled to over 3.5 pawns, according to the engine. Magnus continues knight to f2, making way for his next move, which after queen to d7 is bishop to h3, attacking the black queen. This can be dealt with a few different ways. Knight to e6 is good, so is queen to d6, but black plays bishop to f5, offering a trade of pieces, which is not something you typically want to do when you're the attacking side, trying to exploit your opponent's lack of development and vulnerable king. You want to have as many participants as possible for the attack. But black is of course still totally winning after Magnus's bishop takes f5 and queen takes f5. Magnus continues e4, staking a claim in the center, which normally would be the sign of a severe mental impairment with your king stuck in the center like this, unable to castle, but here it's well supported. So black plays queen to d7, placing the queen opposite the white king. If Magnus were to play e takes d5, then after queen takes d5, then d3 has become a big fat target. So he instead plays queen to e2. We have knight to e6, undoubtedly looking to come into f4. Magnus is starting to run out of useful moves here, so he says, okay, I'll take on d5, and after queen takes d5, I'll play queen to e4 and hope you're stupid enough to trade queens. Black is of course not that stupid. He's an international master, so he knows he's got to keep their royal highnesses on the board if he wants to bring home the W. Then he can take a screenshot, print it out in high resolution, put it up on the wall, show it to his friends and family, and say, look at this, I beat the great Magnus Carlsen. And then they don't believe him because white's opening looks like it was played by an idiotic child. Anywho, what's played is queen to d6, which is a significant error, as it allows Magnus to put his knight on c4 with an attack on black's queen, who now has no great way to maintain her defense of the twice attacked e5 pawn. Queen to c5 would just allow the queen to get kicked around further with bishop to e3. That's not really worth it. So after what's played, queen to d7, which is probably best, Magnus can and should now pick up the free pawn with knight takes e5. So why didn't he? Well, that, my friends, is one of the deep mysteries of this game. What's played is bishop to e3, developing another piece. Black can now defend his e-pawn with bishop to d6. f6 would allow the white queen into g6 with check, so that's not very good. But black decides to castle, which is a good move also, since with the bishop on e3, it's not really very good for white to take the pawn anymore, since if knight takes e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, and bishop to d6, white can no longer drop the queen back to e2, which is much better than any other square for some rather nebulous computer engine-y sorts of reasons that I have no desire to probe. As usual, the amount of serious analysis with which I am willing to dignify a game like this is quite limited. What's played in the game is rook to g1. Not sure exactly what Magnus is thinking with this move. Does he want to push his pawn to g6 at some point? I don't know. He can't do it right away since 1, it's not his turn to move, and 2, black could respond f5, trapping his queen. Next is bishop to c5, which is not great because once again, it needlessly allows Magnus to get some pieces off the board. He could play bishop takes c5, but then the recapture knight takes c5 comes with tempo on his queen, so he now decides to grab on e5 with the knight, which at this point seems to be as good a move as any. We have knight takes e5, queen takes e5, and now a significant mistake with bishop takes e3. The engine is recommending rook to a5 when after bishop takes c5, rook takes c5, attacking the queen, queen to e3, and queen to b5. Black has a healthy initiative going with some nice piece activity. He's attacking b2. Contrast this with the move played in the game, bishop takes e3. Now after queen takes e3, rook f to e8 lining up on the queen, and knight to e4 blocking the file, most of black's winning advantage is dissipated. He is still the better side, but after rook a to d8 and king to c2, white's got his king to relative safety, he's connected the rooks, and his knight's on a great square. So the best try for black at this point is probably an immediate a3 to try and disrupt the white king's position, but what's played is queen to d5, giving Magnus a chance to totally equalize the game by playing a3 himself, despite the fact that that would allow Black's queen to come into b3 with check. But after king to b1, Black doesn't have a strong follow-up, while White is threatening to force a draw beginning with knight to f6 check. I'll leave that for you to try and verify if you'd like. What's played is rook to g2. Again, a3 was better, and once again, a3 is now good for Black. But instead, we have queen to f5, opening the rook's eyes to the pawn on d3. Magnus brings a rook to the center, and now knight to f4 comes with the dual threat of capturing on d3 and winning the rook on g2. Magnus has foreseen this and responds rook to d2, answering both. Next is knight to g6, targeting h4, queen to f2 defending, queen to d5 attacking a2, king to b1 defending. And again, a3 is recommended here, but instead we have b5. Undoubtedly looking to play b4 in the near future. Magnus finally plays a3, locking down that square for the moment, but now here comes c5, ready to crack open White's kingside with b4 next. Looks pretty good to me, but believe it or not, this actually starts to tip the balance in White's favor after Magnus's very strong response, d4, threatening to capture on c5 with an attack on the queen. So no time for Black to be playing b4 here, or really anything else other than c takes d4, which is the best move. Magnus recaptures with the rook, the queen is hit, she flees to f5, pinning knight to king while eyeing f3. Magnus plays king to a1, unpinning his knight. Next is rook takes d4, queen takes d4, offering Black the pawn on f3, which he does decline. If you'd like to pause the video and try to determine what's wrong with queen takes f3 here, it's not too difficult, you'll probably figure it out. White is of course threatening knight to f6 check with the discovered attack on the rook on e8, which will be picked up on the next move. So what's played is rook to c8, putting the rook on the same diagonal as his queen, separated by two squares, which means that they are in a forking relationship, or a forkable relationship, I'm not sure which is correct. But as an unfortunate consequence of this, Magnus now has knight to d6, forking the forkable queen and rook. So after queen to d7, knight takes c8, queen takes c8, and queen to e4, it's pretty much all over for Team Black. What's played is queen to d7, allowing queen to e8 check, forcing the trade of queens. We have queen takes queen, rook takes queen, king to h7, and now rook to e4. After which things have become quite elementary. Black pushes his pawn, it's captured en passant, and after the recapture, the rook goes to b4. The b5 pawn cannot be saved. Of course, Black is targeting h4. So after f5, king to b1, f4, rook takes b5, hitting h6, king to h6 defending, and rook to b4. Black is able to grab on h4 with knight takes h4. Of course, Magnus does now get to grab the f-pawn. Now comes king to g5, attacking the rook. Black's doing his best to make something happen here on the king side. Now Magnus could keep his f-pawn defended with something like rook to f8, but he plays the better move. Rook takes a4, allowing knight takes f3. We have rook to a8. Black gets his last remaining pawn moving with h4. Next is rook to h8, king to g4. There goes Magnus's pawn. Here comes Black's. And how do you think Magnus now wraps up this game? He of course sacks the rook, which is the quickest and cleanest way to win, since after king takes h3 and a5, Magnus knows that Black's king and knight are much too far away from this connected pass-pawn trio over here to be able to draw the game. How does Magnus know that? He just knows. He could probably just feel it, even if Black's king and knight were even closer to the queen side. And here's a fun question for you to ponder. How many moves would it take Black to get his king and knight in a position where he can draw the game, assuming that White doesn't move? The answer is 3 moves. After what's played in the game, knight to e5, if Black could now play king to g3 and then king to f4 before White could move again, then he could actually draw the game. But here, after a6, knight to c6 covering a7, b4, king to g4, b5, knight to a5, and b6, it's all over, but the crying, the burying, the mourning, the inevitable promotion of one of these two pawns, if not for the resignation that now occurs in this position. And then comes the self-doubt that is surely kicking in as Black wonders how he can honestly call himself a master of a game in which he can be defeated by such ludicrous opening play. All I can say is that I hope he knew that he was up against Magnus Carlsen. It's probably the only way he could sleep at night, or maybe he doesn't even care. Maybe he's got a healthy outlook and realizes that it is only a game, which is something I try to remind myself. It's not always an easy mindset to maintain. But anyway, thank you for joining me here today. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the content. Hit that like button, leave a comment. Those things all help the channel grow, and I will see you soon.